For the barbell squat, you're going to need a barbell and you're going to need a squat rack. Make sure when you're squatting that you squat in a rack that has safeties like this, okay? Because if you fail the squat, you want to be able to just lower yourself and put the weight on the safeties. When you're setting everything up, you want to make sure that the safeties are set so when you're at the bottom of your squat, they're a few inches below where that barbell would be, okay? You don't want them high enough that that the barbell is going to bang into them at the bottom, but you also don't want them so low that if you fail, you're not going to be able to rest that weight on them, okay? So make sure you set your safeties, and then setting the height of the barbell is important too. You don't want the barbell set so low that you have to come under it and do a full squat to get it off the rack. You also don't want it so high that you have to go up on your tippy toes to unrack it, because that's going to be unsafe, you're going to be unstable, and hopefully you're going to be squatting a lot of weight. So you want to make sure you're as safe as possible. So this is set up perfectly for me. So if you notice, if I were to get under the barbell, I just have to lift it a little bit, and then I can step back. So once you've set your safeties at the right height and you've set your barbell in the rack, we can go over hand position on the barbell. So generally, the closer you can get your hands in, the tighter you're going to be able to be, and the better squat you're going to be able to have, because the more tightness you can create, the more you can think about just pushing the weight up, and you're not going to be wasting energy trying to stabilize the bar. So the closer you can get, the better. However, that's going to depend on your shoulder mobility. So if your shoulder mobility isn't that great, you're probably going to have to go a little bit wider. But if you have pretty good shoulder mobility and you can get it in tight, that's going to be the best case scenario. Also, when you grab the barbell, instead of wrapping your thumb around like this, I want you to have what's called a false grip. So you can bring your thumb on the outside of the barbell and actually turn your hand in slightly. So that's going to give you a little bit more shoulder mobility, and it should feel a lot better. So I'm going to show you how I set up on the barbell. I'm going to show you where I put my hands. This hoodie probably wasn't the best thing to wear because I have the hood here. Plus my fiance says I look like a tool in it, but I like it. So I'm bringing my hands out here. I'm going to place the bar on my shoulders, and we'll go over bar placement in just a second here. But I'm going to inch my hands in a little bit, and that's about as close as I can get before it gets real uncomfortable on my shoulders. So some people might have to take it out a little bit wider. Some people might be able to get in a little bit closer, but this is generally where you're going to want to be. And notice how that thumb is on top of the bar, and I'm not wrapping it around like this. The other thing you want to think about is you want to think about pulling the bar across your back. So once you get your hand position, to get as tight as you can, you're going to think like you're trying to bend the bar across your back. So hand position, and then try to bend the bar across your back. So next we're going to go over the bar position on your back. And there are really two different places you can have the bar, or like I'll explain at the end, somewhere in between. So the first one is called high bar. And the reason it's called high bar is it's going to sit high up on your traps. The second position is called low bar. And the reason it's called low bar is because it's going to sit lower on your back, right on your rear delts. So I'm going to show you both positions. So the first one is high bar. It's going to be sitting right on my traps. Make sure you don't have that bar sitting on your neck, because that's going to cause you a lot of pain. So it should be sitting right on your traps. If it feels really uncomfortable when you put the bar on your back, you want to make extra sure that you're not placing it on your neck and you're placing it on your traps. So this is where the high bar position is going to be. And when that bar is in the high bar position, it's going to target your quads a little bit more. And the reason is because that bar is high up on your back, you're going to be able to let your knees go forward and keep your chest up more. So that's high bar squats. The second position you can put it in is called low bar. So for low bar squats, instead of having it up high in your traps here, it's going to sit much lower right on top of your rear delts like this, okay? So that's what it would look like. The reason you might want to do low bar squats is because when that bar is sitting lower on your back, you're going to hinge at the hips a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit more of a glute dominant squat. So you could think about it like high bar is a little bit more quads, low bar is going to be a little bit more glutes. It's important to remember that neither position is better or worse than the other. You can try out both positions and see what works best for you and what feels best. The other thing is you can kind of find somewhere in between that feels good too. You don't have to go 100% high bar or 100% low bar. You can place that bar somewhere in the middle and see what feels best and what works best for you. So next we're going to talk about unracking the weight and then the foot position you should have when you squat. So your foot position is generally going to be about shoulder width with your toes pointed slightly out. It's going to vary based on how you're built and how you like to squat. So you can play around and try a little bit wider squat or try a little bit narrower and find what feels best and works best for you. But as a general rule of thumb, you want to try to go just about shoulder width with your toes pointed slightly out. Now, when I go over unracking the bar, it might seem like a simple step that doesn't really make a difference, but you want to make sure you waste as little energy as you can unracking the bar. The reason is you're going to have, hopefully, a lot of weight on the bar, and you want all of your energy to go towards squatting. You don't want to waste it just walking the bar out. So I want you to take no more than 3 steps out of the rack, okay? So you're going to take 1 step out, you're going to take a 2nd step, plant that foot, and then if you need it, you could take a 3rd step to readjust that foot, okay? So here's what it's going to look like. So I have a high bar position here. My elbows are tucked. I'm thinking about bending the bar over my back. I'm going to squat the weight up. I'm going to take 1 step back with my right, 1 step back with my left, and now that left leg is planted, and now I'm going to adjust the right step. And now we've got our foot position, we've got the bar on our back, we're ready to squat. So you should have your feet in the right position for you. You're going to think about twisting the floor apart, or think about screwing your feet into the ground. So if you could imagine my feet were on dinner plates, I'm thinking about trying to twist them out to the side without actually moving my feet. So they're set and I'm screwing them into the ground, and the weight is over the middle of my foot. So make sure you're not going up on your toes or rocking back on your heels. That weight is centered directly over the middle of your foot. Moving up to my knees, I'm going to think about pushing them out to the side as I squat. So you want to make sure they're not caving in when you squat, and the way to fix that is pushing them out to the side as you drop down into your squat. Moving up to my hips. Some people start their squat with a big arch in their back like this. I don't want you to do that. I want you to think about tucking your hips directly under you and pulling your ribs down a little bit. So you should be in a neutral position before you start the squat. You should not have an arch in your back and sticking your butt out like Kim Kardashian. Next, you want to think about bracing your core tight. So you're going to take a big breath in through your nose and brace your core like somebody was about to punch you in the stomach. Moving on up to my arms, I'm pulling my elbows down underneath the barbell. I don't want to stick them out far like that. And I'm thinking about bending that bar over my back. So I'm actually thinking about pulling the bar down and imagining that I could bend that bar over my back. Next, my head position is not tilted back like this or staring down at the ground. I'm keeping my head neutral with my spine and thinking about looking where the floor meets the wall. To initiate the squat, I want you to think about pushing your knees forward and pulling your butt back at the same time. And you're going to pull yourself down into your squat. So here's what it looks like. Now, when you're done squatting and you go to re-rack the weight, this is super important. I want you to walk forward and walk directly into the rack like this and drop the weight down. You do not want to be searching for the J hooks because you could end up missing it and getting really hurt. So always make sure you walk directly into the rack and drop it into the J hooks. Make sure that when you are barbell squatting, you hold your breath throughout the entire rep. So I talked about taking a big breath in through your nose, bracing your core like somebody's about to punch you in the stomach, and then lowering yourself down. You want to make sure you hold that breath throughout the entire rep, especially at the bottom, and then as you stand back up, you can let that breath back out. You want to make sure you stay as tight as you can at the bottom because that's going to help you lift the most amount of weight. Another thing that's going to help you is instead of when you're at the bottom of the squat thinking about standing up, think about pushing your back into the barbell. So you want to make sure that that barbell travels in a straight line if you're looking at your squat from the side. And a lot of people, when they stand up, they think about shooting their hips up and then standing up like that. And that bar path is going to be uneven, and that's not the most optimal way to squat the weight up. So a helpful tip for that is thinking about pushing your shoulders into the bar as you stand up.